Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am your host, John Rothman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going, and expands our base. Nothing should shock me anymore when it comes to Donald Trump. But I have to tell you, what is going on right now in a courtroom in New York absolutely is critical to our perception of the American presidency and our politics. Yesterday, Donald Trump was in court. He was joined by Senator Vance, Senator Tuberville, and several members of Congress. I point this out to you because these politicians seem not to care about law and justice and what's going on in a courtroom. But that's the least of it. Today, just as I am recording this particular podcast, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Michael Johnson, is going to go to the courtroom and sit in support of Donald Trump. To tell you that I am outraged that a Speaker of the House of Representatives would subvert the process of American justice by granting his presence to someone who may or may not be convicted, but still trying to interfere in the administration of justice is to me astounding. Imagine sitting on a jury and having members of the United States Senate, members of the House of Representatives, and indeed the Speaker of the House of Representatives show up in support of a person who is a defendant in a criminal case. There is something rotten here, something appalling here, which needs to be addressed by the Republican Party. I believe that this action by Speaker Johnson discredits him completely as a political leader in this country. He may bear the title Speaker of the House. He may have done some constructive things while serving as Speaker, including the aid package to our allies abroad. But this action is appalling. So I'm expressing my indignation. But in doing so, I am also going to ask you to listen today, as I will, to what happens in court. Michael Cohen will be cross-examined, but he's brought in substantial evidence that Donald Trump did participate in a business records case that caused, hush money to be paid. Is that what we want from a president of the United States? And is that what we want for a Speaker of the House of Representatives to sit in defense of a president who may, in fact, be guilty of a crime? And if, in fact, Donald Trump is judged guilty by a jury of his peers, what will Speaker Johnson say? What will the Republicans, like J.D. Vance, who's looking for the vice presidential nomination, what will they say? Will they say it's all a fake and a fraud, that Donald Trump is being persecuted, not prosecuted? This, to me, is a profoundly important day in the history of American politics. This is a moment which we need to think about as we approach the election of 2024. Is the Republican Party worthy of the trust of the American people? I ask that question bluntly. There is another question which needs to be raised, and that has to do with tariffs and the war now going on with China. It's a tariff war conducted by both Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And the question I'm going to ask you is, what are the ramifications of this kind of confrontation with China? It's not military, but it has to do with our economy. And it seems to me we have a serious diplomatic and monetary crisis as we approach the question of China. It seems to me that we are going to have to consider carefully what tariffs mean. Now, you may not remember this. I certainly don't. But once upon a time, tariffs were a major issue in American politics. There were presidential campaigns which revolved around the tariff question. And tariffs are a form of warfare. No question about it. We saw it in the days before World War II. One of the main reasons Japan struck us on December 7th, 1941, at Pearl Harbor was because of a tariff war going on with China, going on with Japan, going on with the Southeast Asian areas. And so, my question for you now is this: how do we debate the issue of tariffs in the presidential campaign of 2024? Should we recall previous campaigns and what they've meant? And really, what is the difference on the China policy between Donald Trump and Joe Biden? I ask the question because this will affect our economy. It impacts all of Asia. And this is something we should be talking about. There are many issues which should be confronted in American politics. I want to speak about one more that I found absolutely fascinating, and that has to do with an incident in the state of Virginia. The Virginia political situation, in terms of how they deal with their history and Confederate names, is now big. A Virginia school board voted on Friday last to restore the names of Confederate military leaders to a high school and an elementary school 4 years after the names had been removed. What do we do with our history? I will always remember going to the World War II Memorial Museum in New Orleans. Right around the corner is the Confederate Museum. Now, I took my older son, Samuel, to see the Confederate Museum, not because I agree with what the Confederacy stood for, but because I wanted him to understand his history. You understand a statue of Stonewall Jackson was removed from Richmond, Virginia. You understand that Shenandoah County, the school board there, voted 5-1 to rename Mountain View High School as Stonewall Jackson High School. Where do we stand in terms of the debate over our history? Somebody asked me whether I favored removing the gigantic equivalent of Mount Rushmore for the Confederacy on Stone Mountain in Georgia. And the answer is no, I don't favor removing it. I favor using it as a teaching tool. Just as I believe that Holocaust museums should be used to teach what happened in those dreadful days. We cannot erase our history. Those of us in San Francisco went through this over the murals at George Washington High School. And in those murals about Washington, slavery is depicted graphically. And yes, a dead Native American is depicted as well. And the question was, should they be removed? And I took a very strong stand as president of the Washington High School Alumni Association, as did our board, to preserve those murals. I don't believe in erasing history. I believe in understanding history. I believe in using a name as something we learn from. There was a move in San Francisco to change the name of 44 schools. Among the names to be removed, Abraham Lincoln, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington. We opposed name changes, not because all of the people mentioned did everything right, but because we need to understand what our future really is. Our future involves learning history. So I wanted to mention this issue today because I don't want it to get stale. I want us all to understand that this is an issue of paramount importance. I am John Rothman, and when I deal with these questions. I don't always have answers, but I know there must be a thorough debate, whether it is a debate over what happens in a courtroom in New York, or a debate over what happens with tariffs dealing with China, or, frankly, what it has to do with the names of schools and monuments. These issues can be used to educate our children, to present how you really analyze issues. I am in favor of that debate. I believe it serves all of our interests. Thanks for tuning into another episode of Around the Political World. Make sure to follow along and let me know your thoughts on the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and, well, sharing an episode with a friend or colleague so we can continue to expand, to grow. And of course, you can react to me on both Facebook and LinkedIn. Most important of all, I want to thank the wonderful producer of this podcast, Gogo Zoger. She makes sure that every day, Around the Political World with John Rothman is posted. Who knows where we'll be tomorrow, but I can't wait to find out. See you then.